and you know that my channel is about the finer things in life, and that also comprises food. And when we talk Christmas and Advent, then in Germany and in Austria, where I was born, we talk really Christmas cookies. And I know this is the case everywhere in the world, but I must say, and I know I'm subjective, I think the Austrian Christmas cookies are the best. And today I will show you my personal secret recipe of vanilla crescents. We call them vanille Kipferl. Difficult word. You will see it down below. I write it on the screen. You can try to pronounce it. So it's vanille Kipferl, and they are sensational. So stay with me. It's quite easy when it comes to the dough. What takes time is to form them. But let's start with the dough and the ingredients of the dough. We need 300 grams of wheat flour. In this case, you see here 600 grams of wheat flour, because I decided to make the double quantity this time, because I need to fill some presents with the vanilla crescents. So then also 140 grams of crystal sugar. In this case, we have 280. 100 grams of ground hazelnuts. Here we have 200 grams. And now, very important, please use real butter when you make the dough. So here we have either 250 or for the double quantity the 500 grams, and 1 or respectively 2 eggs. Now if you make your shopping list, please already consider that you will have to roll the vanille Kipferl, the crescents, in powdered sugar together mixed with vanilla sugar. And now I tried to make vanilla crescents when I was in the States. Back then that was end of the 80s, right? And it was difficult to get vanilla sugar. Nowadays I looked it up, you should be able to get it on Amazon, or you make your own vanilla sugar by adding, by scratching out the core of the vanilla pod and putting it into crystal sugar, and you let it set and it takes up the aroma. And I'm sure you can find a recipe online how to make that in case you should have difficulties to find it. So what shall I say? Let's get started and make the dough, and you have to knead it with your hands. First we will mix the dry ingredients, beginning with the flour. So be careful not to do it from too high up, because it really gets dusty. So, and I took the bowl of my KitchenAid because it's quite a quantity. So now I'm adding the crystal sugar. And then we can mix that already. And now we add the ground hazelnuts. Well, that's a bit, I grinded them myself, and so they're a bit sticky, but that doesn't matter. That gives good taste. You might have seen some recipes for the vanilla crescents where they use almonds. Well, that's also a version, also very good, but I personally prefer the recipe with the hazelnuts. That's personal preference, I guess. Just try out what you like better yourself, or best yourself, and then decide or make 2 quantities and see what you like best. So, and now we are trying to get that mixed as good as we can in the dry state before then adding the butter. So I think that's already a good base. So let's put that to the side. And now, well, I have to take off my rings, otherwise that won't work. And yeah, the butter should be hand warm, because otherwise it's not really possible to knead it, and you can part it in small bits, as you can see, then it's easier to get that all mixed up. And then you start kneading the dough. I wouldn't put all the quantity in one, or maybe shall I? Oh, I can go ahead, let's do that. I like to work with my hands. I find that is fantastic. It makes my mouth water already because I know how good it is. I really like it. It's my preferred Christmas cookie. And I must say, you know, you find them in Germany as well, but they are never as good as the Austrians. So I'm always having my recipe, and it's also a present that I make, and many people, they really value to get the homemade and the handmade. Look at this, how I'm kneading the dough. So that takes time, and it needs time, and it's really important to do it by hand. As you see, I have a KitchenAid, but it's important to do it with the hands because of the warmth of the hands. That makes the entire difference. I know it's more work, but you know, that's all that makes the difference. So that's hard work. But it smells. I can tell you, you can already smell when the hazelnuts and the butter come together. Can't wait to eat it. And then you can prepare little bags or boxes for your friends and family. It's such a nice present. So once the dough has this consistency, you see it's really well mixed and kneaded, and you can also tell by my hands they are almost clean. Of course they are fat, but there is no dough sticking to my hands. At this moment you can add the egg if you make the simple quantity, or the 2 eggs. As for us now, as we decided to make double the quantity, and then we continue kneading, right? Oh, look at this. So, that's so nice. The sound. But they're fresh ingredients, and that makes all the difference. And with the warmth of the hands, you have a beautiful, beautiful dough. So now I have kneaded the dough together with all the ingredients also after adding the eggs, and you see now what consistency it has. It's quite soft and smooth because of the warmth of the hands, and this is why it's so important that we put the dough now into the fridge so it gets really cold and a bit harder. And this is so important because we will be needing to form the Kipferl, the crescents, and if the dough is too warm, then it sticks to your hands, and it's quite an impossible task, and it's time consuming as it is, so very important that you let it cool down so that it gets cold, so minimum an hour into the fridge. So now, honestly, that was more than an hour. As you can tell, it's the next day, I wear something else, and so we had it in the fridge overnight because it was too late yesterday. And now let's go and form the vanilla Kipferl. Now try pronounce Kipferl. If you can, then you're really on the right way. So as we made the double quantity, I think we will need minimum 2 baking trays. I fear it's gonna be even more. And either you butter them, but I'm going to line them. So on one side I have a baking foil, and I find this really great because you can use it several times. You just wipe it off. So you lay it there. I will turn it around so that it doesn't stand up. And then as I only have one, for the other one I will take paper, baking paper, and it's also it's one that is easily recyclable, and I think that's always important. So I need about that length, and then I'm gonna rip it. So turn it around. Fine, so it's a bit not perfect, but that's fine. So, and now how do we go about forming the Kipferl? I put it here in the middle. As you can tell, the dough is much harder than I last showed you, and that has also to do that we left it overnight. So if it's 1 hour, it's not going to be that hard. So I already portioned a bit the quantities that I need. Now, this is a philosophy, how big the vanilla Kipferl should be. In German, you say when you really make fat ones, you call them grandmothers. You say, das sind Großmütter. So I have a friend, she is saying they have to be really, really small. I'm saying, well, they have to be medium-sized so that you have something in your mouth. And once you start working in your hands and forming the Kipferl, you see it's going to get easier and easier once the dough warms up in your hands. So now you roll it, a few centimeter long rolls, and then you form a crescent. Like that. And then it's also of course important, because they are going to get bigger while baking. It's important to leave space between the crescents. Otherwise they are going to touch each other, and of course that's not good if you, once you want to take them out. So you can even tell here the hazelnut pieces. And I always go about like this. This should be sufficient space between. It's even maybe a bit too much. We can spare some space. And then we go on like that. Ah, they're going to be so good. I promise you, you will love them. And your guests, you can really impress your guests. Or if you need small presents, you put them in little bags with bows and bring it when you're invited, and you bring it with them and you bring it along, and people will be so impressed and they will want the recipe. I'm telling you, they are just mouth-watering. So, oops, fell back. Now, I'm going to tell you, here in Germany you can even buy baking trays that have the form of crescents, and they tell you that you should put the dough on this tray and then you press the dough into those forms. I tried it, I bought it. I can tell you it doesn't work. You have to go through this manual labor, and it's worthwhile. So now we are going to continue and fill our 2 baking sheets. Before you finish forming all the crescents, by the way, in Austrian German we say before you finish wurzeln, so you can try to pronounce this difficult word, wurzeln, all the vanilla crescents, you mustn't forget to preheat the oven. So I have here a preheating mode, and I go on 200 degrees. And once it reaches the 200 degrees, and when we will put in the Vanillekipferl, then we will go on a circulation air mode. But now we will finish forming the Kipferl. So now I finished forming the last crescents, Wurzel, as you see. So I'm rolling them and forming them again. And as you can see, with this quantity I still have quite a lot left. So we will have, I think, sufficient to fill minimum 4 baking sheets. Well, these are European ovens, not the big American ovens. So it's a 60 centimeter oven. And so you see the baking sheets. So it's quite a quantity that I'm preparing here with the double quantity of dough that I prepared. So now we have reached the temperature of 200, and now I'm putting them in on the middle level of the oven and the second sheet at the same time, the second baking tray at the same time. And now we put the timer to 10 minutes. It doesn't really need long. And also surveil it at the end of the time so that they don't burn. Also very important, if it was the first time that you make the crescents, probably your crescents are not the same size. So you have to see the smaller and thinner ones, of course, will be ready before the ones that are a bit fatter. So this is why the size has to be quite similar when you're forming them. But you will get into it, and it's just a question of training and making them several times. So let's see what comes out of here. So now we need to mix the powdered sugar with the vanilla sugar because we will be coating the Vanillekipferl still while they're warm. Once they come out of the oven, we will be rolling them through this sugar mixture. And it's really my niece, who has never made Vanillekipferl before, she was really surprised to learn that the vanilla taste is solely coming out of the covering of the Kipferl. As you saw before, in the dough there is no vanilla, but make sure to use good vanilla sugar, so with real bourbon vanilla, that really makes a difference. And in order to have the right ratio of sugar, it's about 3 tablespoons of vanilla sugar on 200 grams of powdered sugar, and you need to, depending on the quantity that you're preparing. So now that is set, it smells really, really good and delicious. Pure vanilla. That's really, really nice. So and now we have to wait for the Kipferl to come out of the oven. Okay, so now they're ready. We're ready to rumble. They took a bit longer. I'm always checking a bit the color. So you can see the lower baking tray, they are a bit golden at the end here. And this is the second one. half a minute or so. Put them back in. So this is a bit a question of feeling. So it's something between 10 and 15 minutes. So we leave it in there for another 30 seconds. These here are fine. They're ready to rumble. Yeah, and then still warm, you put them in the mixture of the powdered sugar and the vanilla sugar, and then because of the heat and the damp still, this sugar stays stuck to the surface, and it's such a delicious specialty. Now here we have a wonderful plate from Augarten porcelain. That's a historical manufacturer of porcelain that used to furnish all the porcelain for the court, the Austrian court. And look at this, and it's starting to look like Christmas, I would say. So now I need to take out the other Kipferl tray, because otherwise they are going to burn, and we do not want that. So finally we turn it off. And here is the second tray. Here you can tell on the side they are already a bit golden. So that's it. And we will continue putting them into the sugar. Still warm, that's really important, otherwise this the sugar, it's kind of an icing. I don't know if you would say icing because it's not liquid. Maybe tell me down below in the comments if you would say icing in English, or if it's just, you know, the powdered sugar. And it's so nice. Also put it below, not only on the top of it. Oh, you see, sometimes they are so tender that can happen that they break, but that doesn't matter. So you are allowed to eat, of course, what breaks, and that is also the advantage of the baker, right? That you can already try some of those fantastic Kipferl. So let me know in the comments down below if you succeeded in making them. And of course, I know it's a lot of work to form them. The Wurzeln is not so easy. And let me know what you and your guests thought about it, or the family. And see you next time when I will prepare a Christmas variation of plum dumplings. And they are the same recipe than apricot dumplings, but now that we are in winter, I will make plum dumplings, and that video is coming up in the next days. So enjoy, auf Wiedersehen und bis bald!